Eee. Hi there, it's Paulie here. So I'm a huge fan of the author Jack Vance. I actually knew him. He was kind enough to sort of write back to me, and I was introduced to him by friends, but I fell in love with his books in high school back in the 70s. And his eloquence, his command of language, but his command of understanding human cultures was wonderful. Now, I did go over the Dying Earth role-playing game as a review for you. That's fantastic. There's been a couple of other attempts to take his work and put it into role-playing settings, and this one I love. This is Lyonesse. Now, Lyonesse was a series of books that Vance did, and they are set in a sort of imaginary land, these islands that are kind of between the USA, or the Americas, and Europe. So this is this kind of fantasy continent that is vaguely referred to, in Arthurian tales, and it is a kind of Arthurian period setting. It is a medievally sort of world, but it uses the wonderful sense of magic and whimsy that Vance brought to the table. So this is Lyonesse. This is by the Design Mechanism, who are a great bunch of guys. The Design Mechanism folk, they were doing a new version of RuneQuest. The license for RuneQuest reverted back to Chaosium, so they kept what they did and they called it Mythras. Now they've done many beautiful settings for Mythras. This is not technically one of them. This is its own game. It is essentially a modded version of Mythras that is used as the engine for this, but this is a complete game. You don't need Mythras for it, and it's a good system. So what we have system-wise, it is a percentile-based game, very much like basic role-playing in RuneQuest. So it uses those same characteristic values, it uses the same way of determining skills. It's a skill-driven game. It's percentile-based. You've got to roll percentile dice, get the skill number or less to succeed. If you get the bottom 10% of your skill, that's a critical success. And 98, 99, 100 is a fumble. Interesting thing I do like in this, if you roll fumbles, they're actually worth experience to you because we learn more from our terrible errors. Plus the fumbles and so on are more fun for the narrative, so they actually kind of encourage you to screw up and run with it. But you can choose to play from some of these different cultures here. There are areas of this that were kind of Celtic settled and remain very kind of boastful, kind of Celtic. There are some very medieval kingdoms, Mahat and so on. There's also a very strange civilization called the Ska, who are very, very old human race that they personally have a history that goes back thousands of years. They do not like or mingle with anyone else. They are haughty and they kind of see everyone else as sort of undermen. What are these people doing here? But it's a politically active set of islands. There is a kingdom that is very keen on conquest, and in the Lyonesse books we follow all these adventures of sort of estranged princes and long lost princesses, and they are full of fun. But this is also a place that's alive with magic, particularly fairy. So superimposed over this there is fairy kingdoms and fairy shees, which are these kind of pocket kingdoms. They're little pocket worlds that these fairies have. And this is where this sort of varies from a generic medieval role-playing game, because the magic and the whimsy are very deeply ingrained into it. Because characters in Jack Vance's book tend to have a wonderful eloquence to them. Eloquence is actually a skill, and eloquence contributes to other things like persuasion and oratory and legal skills and all these sorts of things. Your eloquence can really come into helping you out, so that kind of Vancian wordiness. There's a beautiful scene in the Lyonesse novels where a king has been separated from his men and he's riding out in a storm and he shelters with peasants, and you get this wonderful conversation where he's paid the peasant a gold coin to look after him, but it's really storming out there. The peasant is trying to say to him, oh look, how how terrible it must be out there, but what joy you must feel at being sheltered from all of this, and that joy surely must express itself in wishing to share what you have. You know, he's trying to get more money out of the guy, and the king, meanwhile, sort of, oh, but conversely, your gratitude at having saved someone from this, that welling of goodness in your soul, that surely is its own reward. And this is a pretty typical exchange, which you can do in this. It's lovely. There's two types of magic in this. There is fairy magic, which is used by the fairies, and it's a beautiful system. It's these are specific spells that you learn. They have a power point cost, so you can only sort of cast so many, you run out of power. And they are very, very, very specific. They're fairy magic, so they tend to be flippity-jippity. They are what fairies kind of find important. People who have some fairy blood in them, which you design when you get the character, can kind of do this quite easily. You can also have characters that are halflings, that is races that are part from the fairy world, part from the mortal world, so you can do that. Humans can learn this stuff, but it's difficult to learn. You have to actually go forth and learn it. But they are little cantrips that do all kinds of strange things. Rearrange the features on someone's face, make his feet really big, Lugweiler's dismal itch, you know, these sorts of wonderful things. Another one that makes someone's teeth chatter. Or you can up it, they really chatter, or you can really up it and they like run around with the teeth going for the next 10 minutes. So there's nothing out there that you point your finger and make someone's head explode, but these are fantastic spells. Other ones that just let you slide into a dance perfectly, or reorder your clothes so they're within the latest current fashion, all these sorts of things. You can't vary them, they do what they do. But there's also Sanderson magic. Now, Sandestins in Vance's world are otherworldly creatures that can directly influence reality. This has actually done a really good job. It's kind of split Sanderstins up into different classes that sort of specialize in working with different things. These ones are very good at rearranging things involving time. These ones are very good at rearranging things involving distance, or animals, or growing things. Or these ones are really good with anything involving the color green. And they come in kind of different power ranks. What you do to use Sanderson magic is you essentially have to gain control of a Sanderstin and get it to do stuff for you. And there's a whole system here for basically learning how to get these creatures beholden to you, and they owe you certain amounts of service before you have to try and find another one or increase it. But whenever you invoke one of these Sanderstins, you have to go through this little persuasion system. You have to specify what it's going to do for you. And depending on how well your persuasion and your eloquence works out, this is the coolness of the deal you've made. Because what Sandersons will try and do is find a way to weasel out or misinterpret or reinterpret what you've asked them, so that it doesn't really work to your advantage, it works to theirs. So you get a number of different stipulations that you can make on how this order that you've given them is to be carried out. You can also store a Sanderson, so you can summon it, and you can do something like, I'm going to take this big beast, I'm going to put it in a walnut shell, bing, and I'm going to carry that with me, and so I can bring it out to use it. Or you can store it, so it can change itself into a form, and the deal is it will do a specific thing. So it's like if you want to give someone the equivalent of a magic sword, or some magic help. All right, this is going to be your magic, I don't know, tennis ball. Here you go, it's actually a Sanderson. Carry it with you, and when you get to where the bad guys are, it will unfold and it will do this thing that will let you into the evildoer's castle or whatever. So it's an interesting thing. The archmages are people who can use several different types of these Sanderstins, and also obviously have a ton of fairy magic at their command. So part of the fun and whimsy and so on of the setting, I really like it. Wandering around, there's a big section of this book covers like the Lyonesse setting. It's got its own faiths, it's got its kings and queens and what they're up to, and the different cultures. So we've got about probably a quarter of the book is this. The system's not too bad at all, but traveling and so on, they've got some lovely bits in this, and this is why I think this is a wonderful game to play. When you walk into a community, they've done these wonderful charts for what's the flavor of the community. big old percentile charts that you can run on about there's often things that are going on here, or there's an odd feel, or there's a wacky custom, because this is a very Vancian thing. So what strange feels and customs are going on? What's hidden? What motivates it? So each of these places can be wacky. You turn up, everything here is round and in circles. Yes, there's a particular strange mode of dress, and on a little side thing you'll find they've got like a little quirk, and that might be, whatever you're doing, like we are traveling to the north, or that's actually a local euphemism for we're all, going to die. So every time you say that, everyone like, oh, everyone looks, oh dear, we've had a suicide pact come into town, or until this is cleared up. But a lovely other section I like, and when you get somewhere, it's, where's the tavern? And it's like, yes, that's what travellers are going to ask. So there's this whole tavern generation system where what's the landlord like, what's his damn personality, what the help is like. So yes, it's a surly guy who absolutely insists that he can't fit you in, and he's going to try and charge a surcharge, etc. And the tavern is rattle completely empty. And of course there is a Vancian meal generator, because Vance was always quite specific about meals and things that people ate. Always leaks in oil. So yes, you've got this wonderful thing for generating viands that you will eat. And it does the same for generating things for sections of fairy woods and wilderness and so on. So it's a game that's got lots of really cool charts for cooking up, setting, feeling, and idiosyncrasies in areas. It's a gamer's game. It's been done by gamers for gamers. So look, this is a terrific piece of work. Why would you play it? Well, because I told you to. No, why would you play it? Well, it's essentially a basic role-playing system. So that's very easy to understand. Lots of people already know it. Dead easy to do characters for. But the setting is so full of fun and whimsy. If you've been running fantasy stuff, this gives you a setting that has politics and culture and religions and so on inherent in it, and it lays that out for you, so it's very accessible. So you've got a world to play in. In fact, you've got multiple worlds to play in, because in this volume it also lays out all these other universes that you can travel to, universes that the Sanderstins come from, alternative worlds and so on. So you can travel through all these different things, and it's also got an alternative world generator if you have people going off on multiplanar quests, what the place is like, what its physical laws are, who lives there, how it affects you physically, how it affects everything. So as a setting, this is a really rich one. It's a really fun one to engage with. The magic is kind of fun and whimsical. Your magical help from the Sandestins can actually drive you to tear your own hair out, so it's quite fun. The rules lawyers amongst you will have great fun trying to specify what the Sandestins can and can't do. This is great work. They are supporting it. They're doing adventures and so on. Design mechanism, it's up on their website. It's really good work. Well worth checking out. If you're a Jack Vance fan, it's an absolute must. But really, if you're like a Dungeons and Dragons player or a RuneQuest player, I would really suggest you check this out. So anyway, cheers. Keep them rolling.